World of Warcraft has seen some very dark times. Content droughts, design fiascos, scandals, systems too complex for their own good, and radio silence as community engagement hits an all-time low. And now Final Fantasy XIV and other competitors are closing in. But I don't think this has to be the end of the story for World of Warcraft. What World of Warcraft needs is simpler systems, more content, better community engagement so that the dev teams know what will get players excited to pick up World of Warcraft again. To that end, I have invented a system of my own, a simple system that gives players huge amounts of customization, that lets developers add awesome and useful abilities without fear of spellbar bloat, giving players the ability to upgrade 3 of their spells to be something new. I'm cooking up concepts for 7 of these upgrade spells for every spec. Some of them are returning favorites, some of them are brand new. Either way, Blizzard has my express permission to use every concept I post about in these videos in the comments or on the forums. And if the Blizzard developers are too pressed for time to engage with the community, then I will. I'll get the feedback on this concept, and even if they don't take a single one of my ideas, they'll know what the players want, and most importantly, why. And they can use that to make the game better, because I want this game better. I want WoW to last another decade. I should probably start by saying that I main a Holy Paladin, not a Retribution Paladin. But while I was cooking up these upgrades, for Retribution I knew exactly where to start, even though I don't play Retribution myself. I have seen enough clamoring for Exorcism to come back that adding Exorcism as an upgrade for Blade of Justice was a real no-brainer. In fact, it was such a no-brainer I did it twice. You'll see what I mean by that shortly. I won't keep you waiting. Let's dive right in. Exorcism is an upgrade for Blade of Justice that has additional range and deals extra damage to undead, elementals, demons, and aberrations. It produces 2 holy power when you cast it. And a second upgrade for Blade of Justice is Mass Exorcism. It also has additional range and deals damage to multiple targets, again dealing extra damage to undead, elementals, demons, and aberrations, and again producing 2 holy power. The third upgrade is Heaven's Fury, an upgrade for Wake of Ashes that sends a beam of light forward that can hit enemies in a line. It produces 3 holy power when you cast it. Next we have Fist of the Heavens, an upgrade for Judgment that deals additional damage and sends holy sparks out from the target, and those holy sparks can heal nearby allies. Fifth, we have Sanctification, an upgrade for Consecration that plants a beacon at your feet that sends holy bolts out at nearby enemies over the next several seconds. Casting it produces 1 holy power. The sixth upgrade is Objection, an upgrade for Rebuke that is ranged and has a shorter cooldown. Finally, we have Natural Light, an upgrade for Flash of Light that produces holy power when you use it to heal an ally, and the higher your mastery is, the more Natural Light will heal for. Now for the thinking. I'm about to say what a lot of Retribution Paladins are thinking. Exorcism needs to come back. It is too iconic not to. Paladins got introduced to the Warcraft universe in Warcraft 2, and they had the Exorcism spell right then and there. The first version of Exorcism is basically a longer-range version of Blade of Justice. The second is a multi-target damage tool. I have seen Retribution complaining about their multi-target damage abilities before, so I figured Mass Exorcism, an older glyph ability that turned Exorcism into a multi-target damage tool, would be fitting. I know there was a Divine Hammer upgrade for Blade of Justice once, and that was also a multi-target damage tool that produced holy power. It was a talent back in the day, but I feel like Mass Exorcism would be a bit cooler. If Retribution players disagree and want Divine Hammer back, let me know and I will switch it out. Heck, if Exorcism and Mass Exorcism producing 2 holy power each is too much, and I should switch that out for a shorter cooldown and 1 holy power, I'll do it. I have every intention of iterating in the directions that make Retribution players excited. Now, I'm not using the original icons, which actually I did use the original icon in the opening, so this is a little bit dishonest, but I felt like these icons were just a little bit cooler, plus they tie into each other. I mean, there's one little skull wrapped in holy flames and three little skulls wrapped in holy flames. As much as the icon aesthetics work as far as I'm concerned, if Retribution players tell me that the original Exorcism icon is a must-have, it will be back in there. Your aesthetic sensibilities are more important than mine in this context. And of course, the aesthetic reasons I've just talked about become complete moot points as soon as Mass Exorcism gets swapped out for Divine Hammer. So if that happens, I'll have even less reason not to want to switch out the icons. Anyhow, Fist of Heavens is just plain cool. It's a multi-target heal as well, which is meant to be a small bonus. I'm more than willing to swap that effect out for something else if I'm told to do so. I just figure Fist of Heavens is a really cool ability from the Diablo series. Why keep it out of Paladin's kits? And Judgment is the most logical ability for it to upgrade, so there you go. Objection was just plain a utility upgrade. I like mixing in utility upgrades now and then. If adding range to the interrupt was the wrong way to do things, I'm more than willing to swap that effect out for a different one, like, say, silencing the target on a successful interrupt. I have plenty of interrupt upgrades in a lot of different spreads all throughout my upgrades for other classes, so it wouldn't be out of place. Sanctification was a spell from the Herja fight in Legion, in the Halls of Valor, and it makes holy bolts fly out at enemies over time, and it would look so cool. Anyhow, effects that kick in when you stand in your consecration instead kick in if you're close enough to the center of the source of the sanctification bolts. Heaven's Fury is a cool ability from Diablo 3, and I knew I need to upgrade an ability that has a fairly long cooldown and that deals damage if I wanted to bring Heaven's Fury into the Retribution repertoire. Wake of Ashes met those qualifications. There's not much nuance here except that it projects the damage further than Wake does, and just plain looks cool. Natural Light, well, I just felt like an upgrade to a healing spell was in order. We are paladins after all. Though in this case, Retribution's mastery improves Natural Light's healing, and the Holy Power generation is meant to be a consolation prize of sorts, something to soften the blow that comes with decreasing your place on the DPS charts when you take one for the team and heal an ally. This is a backup concept for a utility ability that I'm keeping in my back pocket. I'm not sure how well it would work in practice, or even whether any players would want to try it out, but it's a cooldown that lets you do the exact opposite of atonement healing. Beacon of Vengeance, an upgrade for Shield of Vengeance. You place a beacon over a target enemy that lasts 10 seconds. While the beacon lasts, your Flash of Light spell generates 2 holy power, and a percentage of your effective healing is copied to the enemy as holy damage. The thinking here is, well, there is an old joke that Retribution Paladins hate to heal to the point that a raid entirely filled with Retribution Paladins would just be everyone shouting at everyone else to heal them, and no one would actually be willing to heal. This might change some minds about that. I don't know if the duration is good or bad, or if any of the other numbers attached to it are good or bad, but I figure it's an interesting enough concept to at least bring it up, to run it up the proverbial flagpole and see who salutes. There are some more backup upgrades that I'm keeping in my back pocket. Caliga is an upgrade for Rebuke that uses the kick animation, and if you successfully interrupt a target with Caliga, you silence the enemy for a couple seconds. At one point in WoW's history, they were adding talents like Gag Order or Improved Kick that caused interrupt abilities to silence targets. I'm bringing those back as a way to buff utility abilities. I figure there should be an upgrade here and there for a utility. Well, that's half true. I like to upgrade main damage and healing abilities first, and then usually around the time after I've cooked up 4 or 5 upgrade concepts, I run out of ideas. And then I start looking for utility abilities or cooldowns or other stuff that I can upgrade. I often find myself upgrading interrupts to be silences, at least when they're successful interrupts, for no other reason that they're easy to find and easy to upgrade. Though I have to admit, one of the reasons I added Caliga was because I think the kick animation is badly underused. It's fun to see your character doing different things, taking different actions, moving in different ways. Heck, in Cataclysm, when the Rebuke ability was first added, Blizzard made a mistake and had Rebuke using the kick animation, and I loved it. Why not bring it back? Yet another upgrade in the back pocket is Speed of Light. It's an upgrade for Divine Steed that lasts longer and has a shorter cooldown, but you don't move as quickly. The thinking here is that I remember Speed of Light from back before Legion. It looked amazing. Hence why they used the graphics for it in Halls of Valor when Odin speeds you up. In a lot of ways, I felt like the old Speed of Light talent was superior to the Divine Steed ability that we have now. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad Divine Steed is at least baseline, so I don't need to spend a talent point to get it. But I miss Speed of Light. If enough other Paladins feel the same way, I will look for a way to get it added back into the upgrade spread. Now, when I started out with these upgrade concepts, I went ability by ability, not purpose by purpose, if you see what I mean. I asked myself, which abilities exist in this specs kit that I can give an upgrade to? And when I created upgrades based on which abilities I could upgrade, I often aimed for something that I thought looked or sounded cool. Almost always I wanted the upgraded ability to feel at least a little bit different from the original. Often I tried to create some kind of trade-off, making the upgrade situationally useful based on things like the number of targets affected or having a stronger effect with a longer cooldown, things like that. Rarely did I upgrade the same ability more than once for the same spec, but while I was putting together each spread of upgrades, what I didn't do, and what I probably should have done in retrospect, was to figure out what goals a player would have while they're looking at a list of upgrades, and then make sure upgrades exist in the spread that allow the player to pick upgrades that help them achieve those goals. In my next iteration, I plan to have that design goal in mind, to consider what the player wants to accomplish and how they could accomplish it with the upgrades. I strongly suspect that in this next iteration, there will be a lot more cases where I upgrade the same ability in 2 or more different ways. That will give players more options, and since that's going to be the goal with goal-oriented design, who knows? I might even have 3 different upgrades for the same ability in the end. However, I can do this much more effectively in an environment that has a great deal of feedback available, and that's where you come in. You have knowledge that comes from experience with these specs. I don't. I tried to do my research on Wowhead and Icy Veins for each spec, but inevitably there'll be things you know that I don't because you have experience that I don't have. You'll have more and better ideas than I could hope to have, and I know I need those, so please, let me know what you think of these upgrades and what better ideas you have for what to put in their places. Now to examine the Retribution spread of upgrades through the lens of what can I use this for. Well, first of all, one thing about Retribution is that they are very bursty. Usually when I'm at the what can I use this for step in my program, I talk about multi-target versus single target, and I still intend to do that. But now and then, burst versus sustain comes up, and for Retribution, those might be more or less the same. Heaven's Fury is the only upgrade I can see that would be specifically about burst, and to be honest, I never did nail down what Heaven's Fury does damage-wise. Does it deal more damage and have a longer cooldown? Does it deal less damage and have a shorter one? I want to do what's best for the game, so if experienced Retribution players can clue me in about which trade-off is better, or at least that can be better situationally such that both Heaven's Fury and Wake of Ashes can have places in the game, I would appreciate it. Looking at it through the lens of how can a player use this to buff multi-target damage, Sanctification and Mass Exorcism work great, and Heaven's Fury probably does too. For single target, Exorcism and Fist of the Heavens work, but then it becomes necessary to pick a multi-target upgrade. I suppose that Sanctification would be better for sustain, and then Heaven's Fury would be better for burst, or at least could be. I think that actually works decently. There are things that I do, especially in the arcane upgrades for mages, the balance upgrades for druids, and the frost upgrades for death knights that would make you think I had something puritanical against the idea of putting multi-target damage abilities in a single target rotation, or vice versa, and I guess I kinda do. But I also guess I shouldn't have anything against putting a single target ability in a multi-target rotation or a multi-target ability in a single target rotation. Now, I'm not proud of this, but the thing that is making me realize I shouldn't be against that kind of class and spec design is, of all things, laziness. Some part of me wants to say, oh, Retribution's spread of upgrades is fine as is. It's okay that they only have 2 upgrades to buff single-target abilities and others that buff multi-target. They can still use those multi-target ones just fine. I don't need to change it after all these weeks of research and writing and recording and And you know, that may in fact be true. And I genuinely may need to learn the lesson that it's okay for single-target and multi-target abilities to mix. But the fact is, I'm not a Retribution player. Even if I was, that doesn't mean other Retribution players couldn't come up with better ideas than mine, even if my ideas were good. And it also doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes. Neither I nor my laziness should be the judge of whether my first iteration is good. That's your place to decide. So if you spot mistakes that I didn't spot, call me out on it. I'm looking for feedback, and I plan to iterate based on it. Of course, I know Blizzard probably won't take many, or even any of these suggestions. Heck, they might even have something objectively better in store for us than the semi-borrowed power upgrade system that I've cooked up here. But knowing what gets players excited will be helpful to them even so. That is why I'm sacrificing so much of my free time and energy on Project Decade. And who knows, they might just need these ideas to get WoW going in the right direction. Heck, if this video series just gets the Blizzard developers into the habit of creating a blue post with the thinking in it that goes in depth enough for us to understand what they're doing and what their design goals are, then that would be a huge step forward. Even saying the thinking out loud is sometimes enough to get you a new perspective on what you're doing. Is it really what people want? Does it serve the purposes that it really should be serving in the end? Am I really doing something just to make a system look awesome instead of making the game overall better? What does it do for the fun factor? Am I making the mistake of prioritizing my design goals over the fun factor? Are my design goals the right design goals to have? Do my ideas match the spec's feel and flavor? Is it a net gain? Is it genuinely awesome? Things like that. Plus, we just plain need more communication from Blizzard. If Project Decade gets the development team into the habit of telling us the thinking for every change they make, then the whole project will have been worth it, even if they don't take a single suggestion. Again, if you see something you don't like bad trade-offs or something you know is counterproductive or useless, or if you've thought of an idea that's better or cooler or more useful than mine, then don't hesitate to let me know. The more details you can provide about why you don't like it and what makes one of my ideas counterproductive or useless, or about why your idea is cooler or more useful than mine, the better. One of the main goals of Project Decade is to give whoever's in charge of class design and player power systems a good idea what appeals to players and what will actually get them excited to get back to WoW again. And the more you can say about the wherefore and the why, the better. I fully intend to iterate on this project and make changes in response to feedback. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Heck, I've already seen mistakes in some of the things that I've done. But if those mistakes generate the kind of discussion that Blizzard needs to hear, so much the better. Blizzard needs to see player engagement, humility, and feedback actually making change in action so they can start doing what needs to be done to turn WoW around. It can be done and it should be done. World of Warcraft can last another decade. So keep the feedback coming, folks. There's one last thing. I began working on Project Decade videos back in July, and considering how many months it has taken, the fact that there are 36 different sets of feedback to curate and compile, and multitudes of decisions to make based on feedback received, ideas others have come up with, and how to weave everything together into a fun, functional, and exciting whole, I don't have a chance in the tramaculum of getting this done in any reasonable length of time unless I get volunteers to help me curate and compile the feedback I'm getting. If you're willing to help curate feedback, please let me know. If I get enough interest, I will set up a Discord server where we can coordinate everything. Thank you in advance for your feedback and support. Let's make World of Warcraft the best game that it can be.